So Woman by Laura Terracina. So deep does envy's arrow pierce your heart, that woman treat you so vile. Against woman male does not war, and all other creatures of the earth. O enemy of heaven and of nature, how dare you raise hand against so young and beautiful a vision? Where comes this, your so perverse desire? The divine and godly maker of your rib, of beautiful design, for you brought forth woman, so that of one faith and one love in this realm you would be united. Well may you claim glory and pride among lions cruel and evil beasts. Yet however by nature violent they be, to the female their male forbears. Perhaps not first, nor second, to your own ill, you will do what you would, but hold, in peace with your woman live, for behind the lion the lioness doth lie.
So, really interesting poem that Hallie has presented to us today. Before we break it down, I think we need to address the overall theme of this poem, which is obviously the conflict between man and woman. Starting off, any major points you guys see standing out in this poem that you'd like to touch upon?
I think something that interests me in the first line is this so deep does envy's arrow pierce your heart, in the sense of, we don't really get any more picture, as you'll see as we go through this poem, of what this envy is, what makes man so envious of woman. I just think it's a very interesting proposition right at the start that, we're only left to linger on what man envies of woman.
Or perhaps man does not envy woman, but maybe this man envies another person's woman, if that makes sense. This obviously, the author is talking about, how a man has obviously wronged her in some way, you know what I mean, to be able to write this poem. Part of me wonders if that man was envious of someone else and maybe went outside of their relationship.
Yeah, or she was simply abused by another man in her life.
I think we need to look at the context and the time period of which this poem was written, which was obviously a time which was very anti-feminism, anti-creativity from woman, and very, in a sense, pro-man. And she starts comparing him throughout the poem to animals, and even the violent animals as mentioned in the fourth stanza, like the male forebears and lions, like these violent animals, king of the jungle, still don't treat their women like the men do today.
Yeah. Moving down also to a little bit more the second and third stanzas, we hear talking a very biblical themes putting in here, where we see that, oh, enemy of heaven and nature, how dare you raise a hand against so young and beautiful a vision? From where comes this, your so perverse desire? And that also combined with the first line of, or the first two lines of the third stanza, the divine and goodly maker of your rib of beautiful design, for you brought forth woman. So we can see this sort of biblical worldview coming into play here, where obviously the author, is a Christian, or at least was raised in a Christian upbringing, and there's this sort of duty that is presupposed that men and women were made to be at peace and made to be beautiful together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, essentially it says the divine and godly goodly maker of your rib. That's a direct reference to the Lord himself making Eve for Adam. And he says it's of a beautiful design for faith and love where they're united, not in conflict like they are seen in this poem and this time period.
Yeah. And, this perverse desire, this sort of idea that this man is going against sort of this biblical hierarchy that's been set up. You know what I mean? Instead of living in unity in this realm, you would be united, so that of one faith and one love. We can kind of see that there's this perverse desire where obviously this isn't being upheld. This sort of order that was set up by God in Genesis is not being upheld in some way. And from where comes this perverse desire? Well, obviously that's sin. Sin has entered the picture here. It's not from God, this desire to treat women in a vile way or, against this order.
I would say that also looking at the time frame, this is in the early stages of the Protestant Reformation. So ideas like sola scriptura and using the scripture as the highest authority and just calling men back and convicting them back to the scripture and to what God has commanded men to be, like in the third stanza, that man was created and that out of man came woman so that they too might be united with one faith and one love on earth in this
Mhm.
realm. And so it seems like the author is not only just calling out these wrongs, but also trying to call them back to what they are meant to be.
He's also doing it in more of a cautionary sense, as like a warning. In the very last stanza, it starts to mention about how continued cruelty from man is going to start to bring repercussions. Balance needs to be upheld in some way, and it's a call for safe balance and unity, not a conflicting balance, because in the end it says, "For behind the lioness doth lie." It's showing that the women aren't just being submissive, but in a sense, biding time. They are powerful and watching, and in some point it could lead to a greater conflict than expected from the man if they do not find balance and unity in relationship.
Yeah, and sort of going off of that point just a little bit, like for behind the lioness doth lie. Obviously, like their fates are sort of intertwined in that. You know what I mean? While they are strong together, or while they are strong, individually, when they're both together, you know what I mean? That's when they're both going to be experiencing, that highest sort of form of peace and highest sort of contentment, because like the lioness and the lion's fate, like they're sort of intertwined by that last verse. Behind the lioness doth lie.
Mhm.
You can't help but notice too throughout this poem that she's exclusively like comparing men and women, like the relationship between men and women, to the relationship between more specifically like lion and lioness, because she uses that a few times, and in general beasts of the earth, right? So going back to the fourth stanza a little bit, she's saying that they may say like it's because of glory and pride, but even the lions, who she said are cruel and evil beasts and are very violent, are not nearly as violent to their women, to the lionesses, as men are to women.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, and I think in conclusion, it leaves just a lot to think about. Even in modern day, with a culture that is different from now, I still think you need to uphold that idea of balance and unity in a godly sense.
I think men are instinctually aggressive, right? And I think the themes of that are found throughout this poem, and I think it's very easily seen throughout history. But the last stanza, you will do what you would, but hold, right? That men will do what they want to do. But then a man who wants to live in peace with his woman will hold. They will hold tight from their actions. They will hold tight from their violence. That they will abstain from it. Right. That man can put down his pride. I think it's just a continual call to that just original calling.
Yeah, and I think it's a great example of the fruit of the spirit, self-control. Because if you're able to control yourself and not give in to those sort of desires and to the instincts, to be more violent, to be, prideful and oppose all these, the woman in this instance, like if you express that spirit of self-control, then you're going to find peace.
I think it's a good point to close on here, and just like a calling for everyone listening to this podcast, just seek balance, seek unity, and tune in next time.